Hey everyone, and welcome to the Atomic Cinema Experiment, aka the ACE, the science fiction movie podcast that we do here at Melofuzz TV. I am Peter. I am a little bit Braveheart sounding. Do not adjust your sets. That is normal. But likewise, sounding like a mix between a Canucksploitation film and
a Valley Girl.
And a Valley Girl. Tara is my co-host.
I don't know how to say it. How would a Valley Girl / Canadian say it?
Yum. That's Valley Girl. No, that's the ending. What am I doing? We're doing Greeting Citizens. I'm skipping to the end of the show.
Like, greetings, citizens, eh?
We talk about science fiction movies on this show. Every week, we get together, we watch a movie, we talk about the movie, and this week we're returning to our kind of subgenre theme that we're having till sometime around April-ish. Basically, every few weeks, we're making a point of doing another time travel movie, and this is the next film on that list. This is the Philadelphia Experiment from 1984. And this is a film that neither of us had seen before. I think so anyway.
Nope.
Curious to see what this was because neither of us had seen it. I saw Nancy Allen was in it, and that was kind of cool because I like her from RoboCop and Carrie and
as do I.
A few other things. She's in a few Brian De Palma films. She's in Blowout and Dressed to Kill. So, I like her on some stuff.
I love Nancy Allen. Every time I see her on screen, I sort of like fall in love with her. She's great.
Yeah, she's great. Also, she was like 27 when she was in Carrie, playing a high schooler. I only because I was looking up her filmography, and I noticed her birth year, and I went, wait, she was like 26 when she was in Carrie.
She's aged super well. Also,
actually, I've not seen her like in recent times. I don't know what she looks like now.
She looks great.
I will take.
She's just continued to be a beautiful woman.
Because she's actually, let me click on her name here, just so I get this right. I don't want to insult her if this is not accurate. Yeah, she's actually older than both my parents.
Mm-hmm.
She was born in 1950.
Yeah, same with mine.
She's turning 70 next year, which is insane. So yeah, and the reason why we're focusing on her is because she's the one actor in the movie that we know. Outside of that one smaller role, Stephen Tobolowsky, who plays Barney, one of the scientists. He's a face that pops up in a lot of things.
He's Ned Ryerson from Groundhog Day.
Yeah, Groundhog Day. He's actually in Memento. He's Sammy Jenkins in the flashbacks. He's the one who had the disease in that movie, which I think is where I know him from mainly. But he's popped up in a bunch of things over there. He's been in a bunch of TV shows, and that's kind of the only names we really knew about, I think, going into this. I mean, unless you're familiar with the director, Stuart Raphael.
Nope.
Yeah, me neither.
Don't know him. Don't really know the main guy either.
No, nor do I. And let's be honest, I think there's probably a reason why he's not that super well known. Even though when I click on his name, he is still working. He actually has like 10 projects for 2020 on IMDb. He's just in a lot of things and presumably fairly small roles. But a leading man he may not be. More on that in a minute. So what is the Philadelphia Experiment about, you may ask at home? You're sitting there with bated breath, you're on the edge of your seat, you get your popcorn out. Or maybe, actually...
Is it a classic?
I find the best way people enjoy our shows, Tara, is especially to listen to my voice, my sweet, sweet tones, is to listen to it in the bath. Run a bath, have some candles, maybe have a glass of wine, a little bit of bubbly, and enjoy.
That wasn't so dulcet right there. A little bit of the bubbly.
Oh, that's because I was referencing a wrestling joke from last weekend that became a bit of a meme on the internet. I couldn't help myself. I know you didn't get it,
Not
but
my area of expertise.
That was for anyone who was a fan of a little bit of the bubbly from Chris Jericho. That was for you. Although we record these like 2 or 3 weeks in advance, so by the time you see this or hear this, that'll be like a 4-week-old joke. But just bear with me. Just think of what it was like for the comics podcast that we did today, because me and Matt are both wrestling fans, and Connor isn't. So me and Matt were just sitting making bubbly jokes at each other, and Connor was sitting there, the poor soul.
Is that why those episodes are always 6 hours long?
Yes, that is exactly why those episodes are always 6 hours long. So anyway, yes, the Philadelphia Experiment is a movie about an experiment that happens in Philadelphia. That was like just a redundant sentence. That was so silly. It's about two sailors who are doing an experiment for the military slash this scientist dude, and it's basically two cloak ships. It's meant to be like this fancy science fiction cloaking device that will like completely disguise ships from vision and from radar and whatever else.
Mhm.
And okay, cool, nice idea. And
Well, not just that, it turns out it's an urban legend.
oh yeah, yeah. There's text at the start that sort of explains that there was all these experiments, and the most infamous of them all. Uh,
Yeah, it's like a big conspiracy theory dream of like that this actually happened. Like there was a ship that disappeared because of experiments that were happening
and
in the 40s,
yeah, we should mention
and it became an urban legend.
this is 1942. Just for the like, this part of the movie we're talking about is 1942.
Mhm.
But the two sailors who are kind of in the main sort of control area are transported to present day 1984, and that's what the movie's about. So with these two in present day, they run into Nancy Allen, who's a modern girl, their adventures, and try to understand where they are, maybe how to get back home, and so on and so on. Kind of what you'd expect from that point on. Obviously, we'll save the rest for spoilers, plot-wise, which we will warn you about halfway through, somewhere in the middle, and we'll go into spoilers then. So you're spoiler-free until then. So, Tara, how did you feel about the... Now, do you think this experiment was in West Philadelphia? Do you think it was born and raised, and on the playground it spent most of it? I'm sorry, the song popped out of my head. Okay. All right. How did you feel about the Philadelphia experiment? How did you feel?
Yeah, I don't hate it. I'm kind of neutral on it. I think there are some interesting ideas with a lack of stakes
Mm-hmm.
involved, which makes it a little boring. The part that I like the most is like the romance in it, and that shouldn't be the part that I like the most. But yeah, it's okay.
Okay.
It's not going on my list of classics.
Sure. Sure. Well, I'll answer by saying that I didn't know this when I put this on, but the first thing you see in the movie, of course, is the studio logo that for the company that made it, and up comes the New World Pictures screen, and
Don't know what that is.
that immediately told me a lot before it started, because they are not. They make cheap movies. They make your B movies. They make your things that are made quickly and cheaply, make some money, and they make the next thing, and they just keep going that way. That told me that put my expectations in place, right? Because I didn't know that before I put it on. I saw New World Pictures and went, okay, this isn't going to be some hidden classic that I didn't hear about. This is going to be maybe
I know.
fun.
You were so excited.
Yeah.
You thought maybe this was going to be a hidden gem.
Yeah, and I kind of agree with you. It's not bad. It's okay. It's got some fun moments and ideas. I would basically describe it as a fairly pleasant background watch where you could put this on a Sunday afternoon while you're doing the dishes or something, and it'd be a fine thing to have on the TV as you're doing that.
I mean, you can't help but compare it to the Final Countdown, and I think that's a much better version of this.
Well, here's the weird thing. I actually think that they both suffer from different things. That they're kind of inverse movies of each other, where one is
they are, right? Because this one they go forward in time 40 years, and the other goes back.
Exactly. They're literally inverse in the way the time travel happens, because it's present day to the 40s and 40s to present day, early 80s being the present day in both cases. But yeah. I think they're inverse as well, in the sense that Final Countdown was okay. It was like, okay, we like this cast, we like the big production value it has because they're on a real ship and because all these things, but it almost just didn't embrace the sci-fi of it enough to really make it exciting, right? Whereas this movie embraces the sci-fi enough, but is just not well written or like given enough thought to really make it like a compelling story.
Didn't really have permission to use like from the U.S. government or the military to. Unlike the Final Countdown, which was like one big recruitment movie, this one does not have the approval of the U.S. military, because apparently this urban legend is just like a sore spot on the Navy that they don't want to encourage. They're like, no. But I mean, they still use naval ships in the film, so I guess they had to have some permission to film on an actual ship.
That maybe they were decommissioned, something like that. Maybe it was like, these are going out of service. You can use these because they're, you know, I don't know.
Oh, I doubt that. I'm sure they're when something gets decommissioned, I don't know, they wouldn't have like a team of people on there.
Maybe there were ships from another country. They just painted some other, they just like
Just put American flags
yeah,
on.
we'll put the flag and we'll print U.S. Navy on the side
No,
of it.
they used real ships. They
Okay,
used real naval
you
ships.
could tell they were real ships.
I
Okay,
like looking up the IMDb trivia for the movies we watch.
all right, okay. So you've done your research, which is the IMDb trivia.
Yeah.
Uh,
We had like four things.
so now I think Nancy Allen's the best part of the movie. She easily
Okay,
is.
definitely.
There's no question she is the best part of this film. Because the movie does this thing where obviously you've got the main plot of like the guys are in present day and they're sort of realizing they're in a different time period. Because obviously they don't realize that at first. There's a
Hmm.
slow build of them like sort of noticing things and doing the fish out of water stuff. But then there's also the stakes for the movie are that this time travel event has caused a vortex to open in the sky and it's getting bigger and stronger and will destroy the entire planet if it's not fixed and closed. And that's meant to be the stakes, but it's such like an afterthought. It's just kind of this subplot that we go back to every once in a while, and it's like it never feels like there's like a real, I don't know, like a real what's the word, like drive to the film. There's no like or moving
No,
it forward kind of thing.
especially because I mean we talked a long time about on the Final Countdown episode because of the stakes that were involved in that were huge. It was, do we affect the past and stop this horrible attack that took place, but risk altering history? Like that's a huge deal.
Yeah,
This has like barely any stakes except for maybe something you would find in like an episode of Star Trek.
yeah. The hit television show. I think you mean to say.
Well, I've got more about that later.
Oh, you've got more. Oh God. Oh God. There's. Oh, I can't wait to see what actor who pops up later was in Star Trek. Um. so,
Not an actor.
oh, not an
A
actor.
plot.
A plot. Okay. All
A
right.
plot device.
A plot device. So I know, like, I really like. It's hard to like hate the movie. It's very kind of laid back in what it's doing. It's funny because I feel like it has a bit more charm than what a movie that if it was made like this now would have, just because it's got some of that '80s kind of pizzazz to it that makes it feel a bit more kitsch, I guess.
I don't hate the the film. I it's a bit it's a bit dull.
Hmm.
And I think that has a lot to do with the main character also just being a bit dull.
Yeah, the main character is very dull. The main actor does not really have that much charisma. He is very much.
Not just that, but like there's not a lot of chemistry between him and Nancy Allen, but it's all coming from her. Like I believe her when she's like sort of being intrigued by him and then eventually maybe infatuated a little with him. I don't buy them together.
The weird thing about this movie though is that you feel like the love story is just there because they felt they need to have a love story. Like it feels like this was a trope of the era where all of these types of movies have to have a romance at the center of it. So that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, but that was the only thing that was kind of interesting. At least.
I wouldn't use
Even though
the
it was kind of tropey, but like
I wouldn't
maybe
use
because I like Nancy Allen, I'm at least, rooting for her.
I wouldn't use the word interesting. I would say that it's the only thing that kind of like has a spark to it because it's Nancy Allen doing that. You know, um, yeah. Honestly, it's. I was because even once I saw New World Pictures, I was expecting it. Okay, it's only going to be a B movie. It's not going to be this big great thing. But I was hoping, okay, maybe it'll just be a lot of fun. And even the fish out of water stuff didn't feel as fun as I was hoping it would. Like I was expecting some more reactions and like whoa or like, and somehow they make that
Yeah,
even dull.
it's true. Like there were some parts that were kind of interesting, seeing like this generation, the greatest generation, now in the 80s, but the youth are the same age. Like they come across a teenage couple with like the 80s punk look
Mm.
on them, and they're like, "What the hell is this?" And we landed in like an alien world because it is very strange looking to someone from the 40s to see an 80s punk with spiky hair and
Yeah,
fishnet stockings on the women or whatever, boobs on TV and stuff.
and boobs on TV. Yeah, no, it's just there's all these little things that they do kind of notice, but I don't know. It never feels like it's.
I thought maybe it was like a commentary on uh, just the kind of things that we've lost since those generations, like just the 80s was like a very strange time when you watch the movies from that time and you're like RoboCop or whatever. And yeah, there's like a lot of gratuitous nudity now on TV that's maybe that's quite shocking. I thought maybe it's kind of like a commentary on that, like the kind of chivalry that we've lost maybe during that time. I'm not saying that things were better in the 40s. They weren't. But
Yeah,
I don't know.
there's definitely a scene to talk about with this, with his reaction to a certain person, uh, at one point. I feel like, and I just to sort of answer your question there about is this a commentary on this? I hesitate to accuse this film of having commentary on anything. I don't think it does. It's not that type of movie.
Well, I mean, they could have gone that route if they wanted to. Like maybe that's why Nancy Allen, sees something in him because he's
Hmm.
uh, from this other type of world where they don't have access to porn so easily. Who knows?
Is that something a woman looks for these days? Oh, I wish all the men didn't watch porn all the time. Oh.
Oh, no. I mean, there's probably women like that, but most of us just know. I mean, if we didn't have the internet, you'd probably have like a stack hidden in behind a tree somewhere in a forest.
Apparently, I was hearing stories. Apparently, my uncles. This is a story I heard from my mother. My uncles, there was a tile in the bathroom that came off, and there was a a hiding area that they all shared.
I mean, I've heard that people would stumble upon piles of porn magazines in the forest like all the time because that's where people go to hide them.
Yeah, I had the internet at around age 11 onwards, so But there's some things that you could tell me that have gotten worse with life. I do not think the ease of access that the internet has provided is in any way that is nothing but better. Nothing but better.
Social media is pretty terrible.
Sure. I'll give you. I'm not saying the internet's completely positive, but I'm just saying there was a time you could only enjoy some pornographic material if you went into a seedy theater with other
That's
strange
true.
men.
Then you risk like being Paul Rubin and getting arrested.
I think the only message this movie actually wants to have is to talk about how great the aluminum cans are of the present day and how impressive a ring pool is. There's like Coke paid for advertising in this movie. I will not be convinced otherwise of this.
Yeah.
Because
Or
we see them get Cokes in
bauxite mining companies.
Yeah, because we see them get Cokes in 1942, and then we see them get, or 1943 I think maybe, and then we see them get, there's cans of Coke in present day, and he's like, whoa, this is amazing. Ring pool. Oh.
Yeah, it's true. They're so light. What a light metal.
It shouldn't be that. It tastes way better at the glass bottle. Don't be excited about that. That's it.
I don't know. I don't drink Coke. I don't like it.
The can is much better than the plastic bottle, though. A plastic bottle is the worst way to drink anything. Everything tastes worse out of a plastic bottle. I will stand by that.
Okay.
Stand by that.
I'm a glass person. I like to pour drinks into a glass.
I get that.
Classy lady.
Yeah, you classy lady. I am a lazy man who doesn't like to wash glasses, so I will drink. If I can avoid using a glass, I will.
Well, I'm usually just drinking water. I have the occasional pretentious LaCroix. Or when I get it, I don't know. my dad loves offering me beer every time I see him. So
You mean
I get a beer in a glass,
you mean a little bit of
a
the
chilled
bubbly?
glass, because he's also a classy gentleman.
Where do you go to next? I guess, I mean, in terms of spoiler free, like, is there much else to add? Like, there's not, because the movie's not very stylish. The direction is not exactly anything to write home about. Although I will mention one shot, or one like start of one scene that really stuck out to me. Is This is quite later in the film, admittedly, but it's not a spoiler. It's just a shot. There's a cut from a scene where like we're the scientists or whatever talking about this stuff. It cuts to like they're in a car driving at this point, but for some reason the movie has what feels like the start of a music video where it's just this aerial shot going past all these farms and this like song's playing, this like love song's playing, and it lasts quite a while before it eventually like finds the car on the road, because it's not even like you're following the car, you're just going all over all these farms and fields, and then eventually it cuts to the car. And I was like, oh, what the hell? Because it lasted so long that the lyrics kicked into the song, and I was like, what am I watching? What did this just turn into?
Yeah, it does seem very amateur.
Mm-hmm.
Just not a lot of there's no purpose for this film. Like, it doesn't really have anything it's trying to say. So, and the kind of interesting parts about it kind of fall flat. Like, it's not. I don't want to call it bad though. It's still like it's fine.
It's perfectly watchable. It's a perfectly watchable movie. It's just,
Yeah, it's watchable. I wouldn't say it's very rewatchable, but
sure. That's a fair statement. Also, if you like the visual effects in altered states, there's a cheaper version of
yeah.
it. There's a cheaper version of it here in this one.
Is this the same year as the Terminator?
Yeah, 1984, same year.
It's unfortunate.
For this movie, yeah.
Unfortunate for this movie.
Yeah, I'm disappointed. Like, I mean, it's not the worst thing ever, but like, I was hoping for something interesting, some sort of little gem that, like, was a little sci-fi, mind bender or something. And I almost felt like they wanted it to be, because the way they start with the myth of the Philadelphia experiment, I thought, oh, maybe they want to do some like trippy stuff with this and like really get into the cover up of it, and there's none of that. Like, it doesn't matter. Like that opening like title screen where it tells you all this information, like, it doesn't matter. Yeah. It does not matter that this is like this covered up secret or whatever.
No, it's almost like a Twilight Zone episode. Like, this is what happened, and it caused this thing to almost happen, and then it doesn't. Like, all right. there's no real reason for anything. There's no real I'm not really rooting for anybody to succeed, because the stakes don't seem that big, even though, yeah, the world is technically in danger because of this vortex thing that they created doing this experiment.
They don't like. I don't think they spend enough time in the scientist characters to really sell that threat. Like, it's just like this thing we do every so often just to establish it and no more. Like, it's not interested in really selling the idea that, oh, part of the world.
Yeah, they're trying to put like a clock,
a
race against the clock element to it, and it's it's fine. I just don't care about these characters very much.
Mm-hmm.
And so if something happens to them, it's like, oh well, it's not enough. I need more. I need that. If we're in this situation now, and what does that mean for us? Why are we here? Why are we in the future? What is that gonna do? Or maybe we're here permanently now. Maybe this is where the ship went, and that's why it disappeared. And what does that mean? Does that cause something? I don't know, a bunch of chain reactions to somebody else is now in charge in the future that wasn't supposed to be. Like, do we have an alternate history now? Something, I need something more.
Just do something, movie. Anything.
Yeah.
Do something.
They do nothing. I mean, they have a vortex thing, which has no special effects to it. You look at an 80s screen that's got an image of a like a 3D model of a vortex, and you're just supposed to assume that that's what we're afraid of now, but it's not. It doesn't really sell it.
And I think part of the reason why it doesn't sell it is because I think at multiple points they say stuff like, "Oh, the vortex is starting to cause all these like weather problems in this like state or this town or whatever," but they never really show it because they don't have the budget to show it. So we hear about all this destruction, all this like complete, like cataclysmic like weather event stuff, and it's like, but they can't show any of it.
I mean, even like the day the Earth caught fire, which came out, 20 something years before this, 25 years before, and that was they had catastrophic weather events that were pulled off pretty decently on a cheap budget.
That's
like
true.
Get some fog machines and figure it out.
Get some models and blow them over with a big fan, like just
Yeah.
Okay.
I saw Godzilla crush an entire city.
Yeah, and this is the
You
1954
could do
movie we're
it.
talking about. Yeah. So, yeah, I like. Yeah, it's just a very underwhelming movie. Like everything about it is very underwhelming. Yeah, I suppose we'll give the spoiler warning. Although before we get into spoilers, Tara, why don't you tell everyone at home about Patreon?
Oh, yeah. If you like what we do, we have a Patreon page. It helps us out a lot. It's patreon.com/MildfuzzTV. You can donate as little as $1 per month, and that gets you bonus Mildfuzz TV, bonus Ace episodes. You can watch our Time Cop review, which is up for you now. We've got other ones, but Time Cop is the best, so start with that one.
Yeah. Hey, we also did 95 Judge Dredd, which I think is also something of a gem.
Yeah, you could hear my thoughts.
I mean, a gem of a review, not a gem of a movie. There's a difference. There's a
I
difference.
know you like that movie.
I am the
Make you do.
law.
Watch the review.
I am the law. Law. You immediately say that. Yeah. All right. Spoilers for the Philadelphia experiment from here on out. So, like I said, the movie starts in the 40s. We meet the two characters. They're at a dance because they're shipping off next day. Although, I mean, we don't really. All we see them do is do the experiment. No, it sounds like they just go to the ship that's still at the docks to do the experiment, and it doesn't really feel like they're actually shipping out anywhere. It feels like they're just going to help with this experiment. I mean, maybe they're going to sail out like after that, but it felt weird to me. It felt like, oh, you're shipping off for months, and all they do is like go and flip some switches. Well, they're still
they barely leave the dock.
Yeah. But of course, when they do this, this other smaller ship disappears, which makes them all kind of weirded out. And then they go through some weird altered states, like trippy effects, and end up in 1984. They end up in what used to be a small town, but is now just a desert because the town teleports into the vortex.
Right. So the ship doesn't go to 1984. They go, because of everything that's happening, they jump overboard. And the ship is still doing whatever. It's like caught in the vortex or whatever. So our two characters who were in the experimental room abandon ship and jump overboard and end up like in the middle of a desert or something.
Yes, they end up in the desert, and then they're terrified of a modern helicopter, which flashes its light at them and chases them down, and then eventually crashes because a part of the ship that fell off, one of the masts, comes through the vortex as well and like destroys the helicopter. So they end up like walking through the desert, like not knowing what to do, not knowing where they are, debating if they're still in Philadelphia, and one of them rightly points out there's no desert in Philly. This is not a thing in Philadelphia. We're definitely not there anymore. And and the first little thing that happens for sort of out of time thing is they find like a beer bottle, and it's like a German brand, and like it's German. It's German textiles. They think they're the
enemy.
Yeah, because obviously they're from during World War II, so they're thinking they're, oh shit, what's happened? And then they find a can of Coke and they're like, what is it? It's weird. What is this?
Yeah. Well, at least they know it's familiar because it's Coca-Cola.
Yeah, they recognize the logo, but they
in
don't.
This type of metal that's way too light.
Yeah, and then they're shocked to see like a van and a big truck drive past, vehicles that don't really exist yet for them.
Mm.
And they eventually get to a diner where they go in and they ask for food. And I thought there was going to be a whole thing where they try to pay for their food and their money's not like valid anymore because it's been like 40 years and all
Yeah.
the.
No, I thought it was going to be that they were expecting it to be like 2 bits.
Yeah, yeah. Like it was like they were expecting the entire
Or
meal.
something. It would be like prices like we see in the Twilight Zone where they get a full breakfast for like 6 pennies.
Yeah, like, they were expecting like
And
oh to
instead they're
be,
going to be charged like $8 or whatever.
yeah they were expecting it to be like a quarter for both their meals and it's going to be like yeah that'll be like 6.50 and they'll be like what what is this high dining
Highway robbery.
fancy they're literally on the highway. That was a good joke. So no like yep Gus is at it again. Tara's cat being a menace as he often is. So no, they're in the diner and they're on and on at the video game machines, the arcade machines, and what the second guy, because there's two guys who go. Of course, David's the main guy, and then Jim is the second one. And Jim's like watching. There's like a movie playing on TV, like a monster movie, and it's in color, and it's this goofy horror movie. And horror movies in the 40s, like it was like Dracula and Frankenstein, and that was kind of your whack,
Yeah.
was that sort of stuff.
I guess did they have the creature from the Black Lagoon maybe?
Not yet. That was 54.
Not yet.
I was actually quite late, and in the context of that stuff. But he's just kind of in shock and awe. But then his hand, which he kind of burned when he flipped a switch when the machine was on, starts glowing, and it starts like making all the arcade machines like explode and shit. And like the owner of the diner is like, "Oh, what are you doing? Like, get out here!" And he pulls out his guys like, "You're going to pay for my machines, you piece of shit." And this is where Nancy Allen's introduced because she's on the payphone outside, and they kind of steal her car at gunpoint, but are confused as to how to drive it because it's a modern car, and he's confused because there's no gear stick. And sure, if he tried to drive it, he could probably do it, but obviously he's in a high tense moment. He doesn't want to like be struggling to drive, while he's trying to hold a gun at people. So he insists that she come with them. So they essentially kidnap Nancy Allen, and that kind of sets our main trio on their adventure for the movie. And what wacky shenanigans they get into. What should I say now?
You didn't mention that the movie that was on was full frontal nudity.
That's true. Yes, there was nudity. Yes.
Quite shocking for a man from the greatest generation.
They were so arrogant to call themselves that, that?
Agreed.
I get that it was probably.
Although they did have to fight World War II.
Well, yeah, I know that it came afterwards that it was like, oh, we'll call them that because they're the generation who went through World War II. But yeah, come on, bit of an ego. That's all I'm saying. Bit of an ego.
Yeah, our generation doesn't feel very great right now.
No. I mean,
the generation that knew better but did it anyway.
I mean, our generation has the greatest person who ever lived in it.
Oh, thank you.
Damn you!
Night.
I'm not happy about that. I think it's a testament to the movie and just not being that interesting ultimately that we have happily veered away from it and not even cared that much that we veered away from it for a little while. Which,
yeah,
it's what it is.
It's because it's not really bad enough to bash it.
No,
but it's not good enough to praise it. It's slightly better than like a TV movie.
It's not really saying anything or has like some sort of like hidden depth that it's got in there. It's not well directed. No. There's no like sort of great craftsmanship to it.
It is like the most neutral movie that we've watched.
Yes, it is neutral. We will not say it just now,
it's the
but
beigest film I've ever seen.
It's beige. Oh dear. Okay, but where are we? Where are we in the plot? So they've got Nancy Allen in the car, and they're on the run for a bit. She hears them talking about some stuff. They get pulled over. Oh, they say pulled over. They end up crashing as they're being chased. Nancy Allen actually decides not to press charges for being kidnapped because she actually thinks that they're not that bad. The 9 to 12 years that she hears that they might get for this seems a bit harsh. So she doesn't press charges, although that's not necessarily quite how it works. You can't just, the person just can't say I'm not pressing charges and that's them, they're free to walk. Like, it doesn't, work that way.
I mean, he did hold a woman at gunpoint.
Yeah, with lots of witnesses, might I add. It's not like it's just it was her word and now she's saying no, it didn't happen. Um, so yeah, so not that I was expecting accuracy out of this movie, like
Yeah.
factual accuracy, but he tries to tell a psychiatrist or a doctor what he's realised in that sense is that he's went through time, and he obviously doesn't believe him. And it's around this point that Jim freaks out. His body keeps like spasming and like lighting up and all that stuff until he disappears in the hospital bed, and presumably goes back in time to when he left. That's the assumption at this point I made, which turned out to be correct. But
Yeah, I thought maybe he was like still tethered to that the other timeline, or he just straight up died. Those
sure.
are like my options.
Yeah. Although there is a scene here actually where David, the main character, is in a cell with a man dressed as a woman, and it's this whole thing where he is like, "Why are you dressed?" He's just confused, like he's never seen this before.
Yeah.
Coming from the 40s, and he's like, "Why are you dressed like that?" And to the movie's credit, like I was worried for a second that it was going to do something that was going to make it feel really dated. Like I was worried that his reaction was going to be rough
kind of gross.
Yeah. But luckily, it didn't actually do anything with it, just beyond his just kind of like confusion. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not long after.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's not long after he's confused because he doesn't say anything mean or anything like that. He just is like, "Why are you dressed like that?" Just sort of genuinely asking, and then he's called out of the cell, so it's not a big deal from that point. But I was worried for a second that it was going to do something that was going to be like, "Ugh, this is aged badly," or this is really homophobic or whatever. And
yeah, a little insensitive or tacky.
Yeah,
but it was like a nothing scene. It was just another like, oh, this is the world that we live in now.
Because likewise, I actually just tonight started watching News Radio because it had been recommended to me from a few people.
The old sitcom.
Yeah, because Phil Hartman's in it. Who I've liked in the movies I've seen.
I love that show.
Yeah.
It's got Joe Rogan before he was super broy.
He's probably still the worst character though, just from. But I watched the entire first season tonight because it was only 7 episodes. It's only 7.
Oh, I didn't realize.
Yeah, season 1's only because remember how the first season of The Office is only 6 episodes. It's basically that. It's like just this really short little season. And
I love Dave Foley. I had such a crush on him. My fellow Canuck.
He's very likable. I didn't realize she was in this, but the main woman in it that he's in like a relationship with,
Marina Tierney.
Yes, she's quite nice. I like her.
Yeah.
I had seen her in a couple of things, but the reason why I was bringing this up, why it was relevant to the conversation we were having, I wasn't just wanting to talk about something else, is there was a couple of jokes in those 7 episodes that felt, I mean, most of the show is actually held up fairly well from what I've seen so far, and it got funnier as it went, which was nice. But there was a couple of gay jokes that really did not age well, where I was sitting there going, this feels a bit like, and it's the 90s.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
I mean, yeah, you just have to remember the time that it was made when you watch it.
Yeah.
And there's a really, really great disclaimer because I own a copy of like some Looney Tunes on Blu-ray, and there's a really good disclaimer that pops up that's like, look, we know, we're not saying that this is okay, but it's another time and where prejudice was just very present, and it's bad. It was bad then and it's bad today, but to edit it out would be like saying it never happened and we didn't have these prejudices, which would be worse.
Yeah. I think it's actually Looney Tunes, or maybe it's like it's definitely Warner Bros. Stuff, but there's definitely one that's Whoopi Goldberg who does like an intro.
Oh, really?
Talking about, yeah, there's like she sits down for just like a minute and just kind of essentially gives that disclaimer, but herself, and explains it. I remember seeing that intro. Maybe it was in the old DVDs or whatever, but I remember it being a thing. I just
it's like it's okay to be embarrassed about your past if you know that you've come a long way.
Sure.
You should know where you came from.
Yeah, absolutely. And it wasn't anything too bad. It was just, there was a scene where Joe Rogan was like mortified that someone thought he might be gay. Like he had to yell 100 times that he's not gay, and it felt like this is a super date. Like I feel like maybe in school now kids would still be this bad, but I feel like now like most adults, if there's someone
even Andy Dick was a big part of that show. Isn't he gay? Or
Uh,
maybe I'm just making that up, but I thought he was or
um,
is.
I don't know. I actually don't know. But
Hmm.
I feel like most at least normal dudes now would if someone like implied or assumed or thought they might be gay would just be like would just sort of smirk and go no I'm not gay and just move on. It wouldn't be a thing. They wouldn't feel the need to like
Yeah, it's
say
not an
anything.
insult.
Yeah. That would be it. But no, it's the
Right.
90s, so he has to yell for 10 minutes that he's not gay just to make sure. Just to make sure that everyone knows that he is definitely not gay. Um,
Hmm.
but so basically, I thought that this scene was going to do something with that or something, you know, in along those lines, and it didn't. So credit
No.
where credit is due, I suppose.
I wonder if that's something that like got was like more accepted in the 80s than it was in the 90s.
You think?
You know? I don't know. Maybe.
Maybe.
I mean, maybe not.
I wonder if it's sort of
It's just the
thing.
80s seems like such a time of like partying and like whatever sexual um freedom in a way. Not like the 60s was, but like it seems like that last bit before like the conservative 90s happened.
Maybe. I wonder if it's just that it wasn't really on TV before, so the 90s were the first ones to kind of even use the subject to that extent. And I may be completely wrong in saying that. I
Yeah.
don't know. Um,
Well, I don't know, because I've watched like wasn't Cheers the late 80s? And I
Cheers was
think
mostly
the
the
early
80s.
seasons of that have a couple of
Do they?
like
Okay.
there's an episode where they are afraid that their bar is going to be a gay bar, is becoming a gay bar. And there's some pretty insensitive
Yeah. I
jokes
mean,
in
no, I
there.
mean, I've seen Cheers a couple of times, but I mean, there's a lot of episodes. I don't remember them all.
Oh yeah, there's a ton.
Yeah, there's like 250 episodes of that goddamn show. Um, so yeah, no, that's fair. But anyway,
Yeah.
so basically, at this point, we've got some evil government dudes that are chasing after David, and him and Allison run out together, get a car, and go on the run together. We'll get to why the dudes are chasing them. We'll explain all that stuff in the one bit I think later, but. So they end up, they're in a motel room together, and this is where some of the more like she almost leaves at one point because he kind of freaks out because it's like too much to take, but then to convince you to come back. It's a very nothing scene to be honest. I think it's meant to be a scene where he's supposed to show range, and the actor's just not good enough to really show it. is
Yeah.
the truth.
I mean, if he's doing 10 projects this year, then maybe he got better.
Maybe he did. Uh,
He's not a bad actor, but I agree he doesn't have range.
yeah. Um, yeah, because he looks confused at the chopsticks when she brings Chinese food in. He is baffled by all the TV channels, which is funny because by today's standards, it's not that many. But he's like, whoa, channels and things, and watch TV. I mean, chances are he probably never had a home TV before. I mean, TV as an invention existed in 1943, but it wasn't exactly a household item yet, where everyone had a TV.
Yeah, although he does recognize, like, he starts watching like an old comedian, I thought.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't sure if that was
Like,
from a movie or if it was a TV show. I wasn't sure.
mm, okay.
Because remember, this is like he's from a time when you went to see a
Oh,
maybe you would get like two movies and a bunch of shorts. So this could have been a short that played before movies back in the day or something.
right. Trying to think of who I thought it might have been.
But he's watching the
Like Jackie Gleason, was it?
so was he around in the early 40s?
Uh, I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe that's just an old comedian that I could think of that had a show.
I think you're only thinking of that because in Back to the Future, they're watching Jackie Gleason in the 50s.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that is the only reason why I know that name is
He was
because of Back
born
to
in
the Future.
1916. Years active, 1937 to
Oh, fair
86.
enough. That's a long time to be active. Jesus.
I thought that's who it was, but you're right. Maybe it is just Back to the Future. Made me think
Yeah, I
that.
mean, you could be right. I mean, I don't know him well enough to recognize him. Like, I wouldn't know it's him. But there's lots of other little things. He sees Ronald Reagan like on TV. He's like, this guy looks familiar. Is
There's
this
a couple of Back to the Future parallels then, huh?
yeah. Is this a movie? It's like, no, it's not a movie. One of the funny things though about this whole fish out of water stuff is that watching this now, when this is like 30 plus years old, is that at one point she pulls this alarm clock and it's got like a talking voice. And it's like, alarm set for 8:15, and he's like looking at it like, whoa, it talks. And to us this sounds like the most ancient like relic ever. Like, this sounds horrendous to us, but he's like, whoa.
Does not sound like my Google Assistant.
No.
No.
This does not sound like anything impressive, but to him it is, which makes some sense. I almost like the idea that like the version of that for us now is if it would sound the same as Google Assistant, but in the future it'll have a personality and it'll crack jokes. Like, we'll think it's the same as, oh, this has not changed that much, but then it'll like drop a joke on you and like say your mother and like, wait, what? Did you just crack a joke?
Yeah, there's a movie coming out that kind of reminds me of that, with the kid from Workaholics and Righteous Gemstone.
Oh yeah, I know who you're talking about. Yeah,
It looks like a Her like
comedy.
film, but it's comedy.
Comedy.
The
Yeah.
trailer's pretty funny anyway.
Yeah. Her's a great movie though. Her's a movie that we'll do
We'll
at some
review it,
point.
and then
Yeah.
you'll find out how I feel. Maybe controversial. No, it's not. I like it.
Yeah, I was actually just thinking. I'm pretty sure you've told me before you like it, so I was just searching the memory banks. Yeah.
I just like to say it because that's what you say sometimes.
Mm. I don't want to search too hard. I don't want to overdraw at the memory bank. Anyway.
Whoa, nice callback. Pretty clever title, actually.
That was a slam dunk. So yeah, so he's just kind of like baffled by all these little things, all these little fish out of water moments, and then again when they're in the car and he's handed a can of Coke and he's like, "How did you open that? What's happening?" And then she opens it for him and is like, "That's pretty cool."
Modern technology.
I know.
We have much more efficient way of delivering sugary beverages in the future.
Of course, he did try calling Jim's wife before, and she answered, but he hung up because he felt too nervous and he couldn't say anything. That's when he kind of freaked out before. But they go to where his dad would work, because his dad was a race car driver and had like had a garage. Goes to see him and see if he's still there. They find this new guy, and it's like, it's like they go in and check, but they see some photos of him on the wall. And he's like, "Hey, can you tell me about this guy?" He's like, "Oh yeah, the guy who used to own this place. Yeah, he passed away a few years ago. But he was, a race car driver up until like the 60s or something like that. He went for a long time." So that's an emotional moment because he's found out his dad's dead. I have to admit, this moment played weird for me though, because this is going to sound insensitive on my part, but I feel like if you were alive until now in this year, you'd be in your mid to late 60s, right? Given your current age. Mm-hmm. Did you really think there was much of a chance that your father was still alive?
No, but I took it more like his dad died young, and he was upset about that.
It wasn't that young, was it? He said it was like a few years ago.
Oh, I thought he said dad died in the 60s. Just the pictures are from the 60s.
It was just the pictures from the 60s. Even if it was the 60s though, he still wouldn't be that young. I mean, let's assume that he's even the be conservative and say he's only 20 years older than his son, right? That would mean he'd be in his mid 40s. That would mean that he'd be in his like mid to late 60s, or mid to late 60s in the 60s, but he'd be in his 80s when he actually died. If I'm right in saying it was only a couple of years ago.
Okay, yeah. I plan to live to 150, so it seems young to me.
Oh, dude, I'm just picturing what Tower's going to look like at 150, and it's like something of a horror movie.
I think there's an app that can do it now. It's all the rage.
It's 150?
Well, it's an app that makes you look older, so you can see how you age.
Oh yeah, I've seen it.
But I can't help but think of do you remember that Star Trek episode where everybody ages really fast in the original series? Mm-hmm. And you have this great shot of William Shatner, and he looks amazing, and he's got the silver hair. He's like, "This is how I'll age. I'll still be beautiful." And then you compare it to how he actually ages. I mean, he's still a 10, but
that is some Star Trek rose tinted glasses on there. And yes, I'm familiar with this app because have you not seen the joke where someone said, "Oh, let's see what the Avengers look like when you've used the aging app," and it's like it's like Chris Evans looking really old and Chris Hemsworth looking really old, Chris Pratt looking really old, and then Paul Rudd just looks the same.
no, but that's hysterical.
Because Paul Rudd just turned 50. For anyone who's not aware of this, Paul Rudd is a 50-year-old now, and he still looks like he did 20 years ago. So, that man is refusing to age.
And you know what he's taken?
Probably
Something movie stars could afford.
Yeah.
Not me.
Yes. Don't worry, we're going to hit it big soon, Tara. We're going to.
Oh, yeah.
That ace box is going to come.
Finally, I'll get that
flowing in.
Amazonian clay that I could put on my face to keep me young forever.
Yeah. Although we better get successful soon because we're really running out of time on that front.
Ooh. Hurry. I got crow's feet.
Okay, look, I know. Look, I limit myself to one old age joke per episode. I don't want to go more beyond that. I feel like any more than that, she's going to actually get self-conscious, get complex. I don't want to do that. Just one little joke per episode. I can live with that.
Yeah, next week I'm going to be like all Botoxed up.
Which I'll be honest, is far more horrifying than anything the age will do to you.
Never.
Yeah. Oh god. It's like so sometimes it's like you've been in a fight and you're all swollen from a fight. Like.
No. I mean, I'm pretty sure that's what Botox is. They just put them under and then fill like a sock full of soap and then just beat them under.
That's how your higher class like violent people get their victims is they do it on the hush hush. They go to these Botox places and they're like, right, I'm just going to beat the shit out of this person. Fight club. Yeah, it's just Fight Club, but the person's unconscious. Oh dear.
All the spas are just fight clubs that we can't afford.
Okay.
Stop tangenting.
This is your fault. That's not me. This is on you.
People want to know what happens next.
Do they? Okay.
In this movie that I can't remember the name of, Philadelphia Experiment.
The Philadelphia Experiment. Born and raised. So they go to Jim's wife's place, this ranch, and of course I kind of saw this coming, but it was like, well, I bet Jim's here too. I bet old man Jim is here. Sure enough, he is. He's outside and he's riding his horse. There's an interesting little beat here where Jim's wife kind of recognizes him but doesn't really believe it at first, and then like as he keeps saying things.
Right, because we see her in the very beginning of the movie, right?
Yeah, we see her at the party, the going away dance that they're at. And it really establishes that that her and Jim are a really happy couple, and that she's also good friends with David. They all know each other. It really establishes all that at the start. Once he knows Jim's out there, he goes to speak to Jim, and I thought the casting was pretty good here. I thought this guy did look like an old version of the other dude. I was like, yeah,
I thought so too.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like you know who he is right away.
But he refuses to talk to him. He doesn't want to talk to him. He gets very emotional and insists that he leaves. And of course, the evil government dudes show up, so they have to run anyway. But and there's like a really small beat here where he's with his wife and she's like, he just wants to ask you some questions and know some stuff, and he's like, it's better he doesn't know. He's got so much coming up, and it's meant to be this like almost tease for like what the climax of the movie is going to be, that he's going to do this really hard thing that's going to be a big deal. Although to be honest, once we actually see it doesn't actually feel like it was that hard or difficult or anything.
Not really. Though I like that Jim doesn't want to like relive the old times because he's had like a really difficult time trying to believe that this never happened. It seems like he's afraid that he went crazy about the whole event.
It sounds like because no one believed him, they convinced him he was crazy, so he went to therapy for a long time and like. Yeah.
I kind of like that. Like he sees them and it's not like a happy reunion. It's like, oh, the trauma of this ghost that I saw before has come back in my twilight years and it's gonna put me back in the home or something. Like I kind of enjoyed that part of it, but
That was an interesting concept. It
It
almost
doesn't
it would be
doesn't
worth
really pan out, with the ending though.
yeah, it'd be worth almost just making the whole movie about that idea. This idea that like just make the actual travel bit quite quick and make it be more about him reconnecting with now the old version of his friend who did travel originally with him but went back. Like that could be an interesting little thing to explore.
Because it would have like character.
Because it would have character, yes. It's right around here though. After they have to ditch their car, they're sneaking in the back of like a horse truck or whatever it is. We get the first kiss because David's been all mopey about how, why are you with me? You should leave. You should be safe away from me. And she's like, shut up, and kisses. That's not the exact detail, but like that's essentially what the scene is.
Yeah.
And of course, they don't get captured, but they do want to actually find the scientist who was behind the experiments, which I think leads us nicely into the subplot that we've had, because we have this old scientist in all these scenes at this place where they're looking at the vortex, and they did this experiment in this town that made it disappear, yada yada yada. But of course, it wasn't that much of a leap to assume that this old man, this old scientist, was the same as the young scientist who was in the 1940 section of the film, who was running the experiment, who we briefly see at the start. So
although they don't look alike.
They don't look alike, no. And you can tell that it's him because at one point he pulls out a photo of the ship and he compares the photo with what they found in the desert, and it's like, oh, this is him, this is this guy. So David and Allison, who's Nancy Allen's character, go to someone who works there, kidnap him, force him to take them into the lab, which is where all the people who've been chasing them the whole movie wanted to take them there anyway because the scientists wanted to speak to them, and now they're doing it by force, which I think is one of the things you were kind of talking about, where it feels like there's oddly no stakes, because the thing they're running from for the like back half of the movie is also the solution to what they ultimately want to do.
Yeah, I really don't feel any stakes in the film. There's no complex question, or it's just we make a problem and then we fix a problem that we made earlier.
Yes.
It's not like, I don't know, it doesn't seem like there's any repercussions to anything.
Yeah. Outside of all the burned men from the ship who, when the ship reappears, they're all dead.
That's actually really cool.
It's really creepy.
That was
it's
the
like,
part I went, whoa, like gore.
yeah, you almost wish that like that had been like, you start with that and have a bit of mystery as to what happened. Like, oh, where did that ship go? Why are all these men burned? Like,
yeah, that was totally unexpected. I was gonna wait till we got there in the film though to talk more about it.
That's fair. Well, I mean, we're basically at the ending now, because ultimately, once they get to the lab, the scientist explains who he is, what's happening, and he says that we have witnesses that say that you turned off because the reason why the vortex is open is because the generator in the ship is still on, and the ship's inside the vortex, and we have witnesses that say that you turned it off, and he's like, no, I didn't. Well, you haven't yet, so we're going to have to send you in. And they give him this like protective, like, spacesuit essentially to go into the vortex. They have this ridiculous, like, over the top, like, truck with tire tracks that drives them into the vortex. And all that really happens is that he gets swooped out of the vortex. He's on the ship again, and it's all the flashing lights and the negative colors and stuff. And he says like goodbye to Jim. He's like, oh, I'll see you again someday, I promise, old buddy, old pal. And he flips the switch, and then he just jumps overboard, thinking that he wants to go back to the 80s because he's in love with Nancy
He doesn't
Allen
flip the switch. He takes like a crowbar and smashes everything.
Oh,
like,
good
why
point.
don't you just unplug it?
Good point, yes. He doesn't just flip the switch, he smashes everything in the room. You're right. So the movie like ends with the ship reappearing in 1943, and then in 1984 they're all happy because the town's reappeared. But then Nancy Allen drives out into where the town is and is looking around for him, and she's like, David! And then he appears in his suit, they kiss, and it freeze frames on them kissing, and it goes to credits. Although he does crack a joke first about the Navy owing him 40 years in back pay, which he didn't actually do any of that work, so that's not how that works, David. I'm sorry. Like, you weren't there actually doing the work. Just because you skip through time does not mean they owe you 40 years of Navy pay. I'm fairly positive.
Hopefully he has like a savings account.
Hey, the interest
maybe has earned some interest.
Yeah, the interest might have skyrocketed. Yeah, that's a good point. But yeah, that's the movie. Like, honestly, yeah, it's a pretty dull movie. It's not like bad.
Of
It's
it.
not good. It's
I did perk up in the last couple minutes when they had that like grotesque, like there
mm,
some sailors were like horribly burned, and there was one sailor that was in the deck still alive, but like had a hand poking out and like part of his face was
mm.
still poking out, also like severely burned and moving around.
Do you know what I think that
Like,
is? I think that's because it gave you something to feel like there were stakes. It was like, oh wait, there's like actual
yeah.
real danger here. There's like something dark and sinister possibly happening. But
Mhm.
it's really just that one little moment, really.
It's also the premise of an episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Of
In like season
course.
6, there's basically a Philadelphia experiment episode where it was on Riker's previous command where they had lost a ship, and it was a ship that was basically had become like a, I don't want to say a rumor, but they were working on cloaking technology, but it was cloaking technology that can also pass through material, except that one had like reappeared while it was going through an asteroid. So like part of the ship was still like you walk through the hull and it would just be like rocks, like instead of a wall, and people were, trapped inside and stuff, or had died inside. It was like this horrible experiment gone wrong. Um, I won't tell you what else happens, but
Oh
because you're gonna
sure.
watch it eventually.
Yes, yes, I look forward to it. In two or
But it's
three
a heavy
years.
Riker episode,
Oh, your
which are
favorite?
my favorites.
Yes. So predictable. I'll be honest, I feel bad. I feel bad that I don't have any great insight to share on this movie beyond just kind of reacting to a few key moments in the plot, because ultimately there's nothing really to it. Um,
Yeah.
it's lacking real stakes, as you said. Its main character is not interesting and lacks range. The threat of the vortex feels undercooked, and I don't know. It kind of brushes past the more interesting ideas. The idea of like Jim, like not wanting to like believe this because he was convinced that it was fake, and the horror of the ship that returns. Like all that stuff is the more interesting parts. Um, I don't know. All that stuff just feels really quick and just kind of passed by. Um,
Did you think maybe he decided to go overboard and go back to the future because he realized the future had TV with boobs on it?
I think so. Boobs are a big
Yeah.
selling point.
That's the message I got from the film.
Yeah, that's
So
that's what I got to. He was hoping for Nancy Allen's
better to be in a
boobs.
future with boobies on TV.
Yes, he was hoping for Nancy Allen's boobs. I think that was his main goal,
I mean, who wouldn't? She's great.
though. um, yeah, the movie's just kind of dull. I mean, I think it's safe to say when we do our top 10 or whatever time travel movies next April that this is probably not making the cut.
I don't know. I mean, we haven't watched a lot of them yet, so
Yeah, but you got three back to
maybe
the
it'll be an honorable mention.
you've got three Back to the Future movies and two good Terminator. That's like 5 out of 10 right there. Before we even look at anything else.
Are we gonna do the Back to the Future franchise? Because
uh,
we have to.
I mean, I don't necessarily think we had to before then, just because it's like, well, we've both seen it enough that we don't need to, like, we don't have to fill in that blank for us. But if you want to make sure we've actually covered everything we talk about on the show, then sure, we should do the Back to the Future franchise.
Eh, maybe eventually. Maybe when they do a reboot.
Oh, don't say that. Don't say that.
Ah, come on. They reboot everything.
Hmm. Back to the Future. Back to the Future's a perfect movie and a
Well, I
ball.
mean, they sort of have a Back to the Future reboot on TV with Rick and Morty, and it's, I mean, fans aside, it's really great.
Fans aside, yeah. Yes, I've only seen the first 2 seasons, but I did enjoy them. Um, so I suppose I can't argue with that too much. I suppose we're ready to rate the movie. Yeah. Hopefully, all the tangents made this a more entertaining discussion, because I don't think the movie on its own was that interesting to talk about. So hopefully we
Yeah.
spiced up a little bit with some old age jokes and some
My favorite.
yeah. what other jokes do we have? I don't know.
We talked about Scottish accents for a while.
That's true. We did. Yes. Yes. Oh no. I'll do Scottish Doc Brown. Marty, I don't know how, but they found me. They found me, Marty. I don't know how. Who, Doc? The Libyans. The Libyans have found me, Marty. That's
Oh, but I think I'll rate the movie.
Yes, rate the movie.
Yeah. The movie is neutral. It's beige. The actor's beige. The scenery's beige.
So what you're saying
It's
is
the beigest film we've watched.
So what you're
It
saying
is.
is it's a straight down the middle is what you're saying.
It's a 5.
It's a 5. I agree with that. I agree 100%. It is a 5 out of 10. This is the most
This is
5
the most 5 movie we've ever watched.
It's the most 5 out of 10 movie I may have ever seen. It is such a 5 out of 10. Not a terrible watch, but nothing worthwhile really either. If you're a Nancy Allen fan and want to see her on something else, then sure, watch it for that. But that's basically about it. So that has been the Philadelphia Experiment, which we spent maybe half the episode talking about.
Sorry.
Sort of MO. What's weird though is this one wasn't like oh we talked about it for the first like while and then just tangented for like half an hour at the end. This was interspersed throughout the plot because we just weren't that interested in the movie.
Yeah.
Every time I got bored,
the final countdown had a lot of tangents, but it was still related to the film.
Yes. There was Navy stuff and ship stuff, and I mean I'll give this stuff.
Yeah.
I'll give this movie one thing. It wasn't just plane and ship porn like Final Countdown was for half its runtime.
There's some hot plane action.
Oh god! See the one plane, the little stick thing came down for the landing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean that the plane basically got an erection. That was a scene in Final Countdown.
Shut your mouth.
Oh dear. But yeah, that has been the Philadelphia Experiment. So we no Mystery Science Theater section this week. We'll see what we can do for it coming back. Let us know what you think of the movie if you've seen it in the comments. You can like and subscribe. You can, of course, rate the podcast on Apple Podcasts or whatever podcast app you choose. Doing so helps us out a lot because it means they put it in their search results more. It means they recommend it more, for similar shows and that kind of thing. So please do that. We mentioned Patreon earlier, of course. Go to Patreon and support us. There are some changes coming to Patreon a little bit. I'll mention this here as well, just because it may affect you if you're the $1 or $5 tiers. So early access, which has traditionally been at the $1 tier, is moving to the $5 tier. So you might be losing that, which I know sounds bad, but we are adding like a special exclusive already cancelled review series into the $1 tier. So the idea is that the $1 tier is now all the exclusive shows, and then the $5 tier is all the voting and early access, and also my Buffy commentaries. Because I do commentaries, of course, of the hit television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer, if you didn't know that.
What a cheap way to add that.
I know. So, and there's actually a vote for patrons. Patrons at the $5 tier and up will be voting, or already will be voting by the time this goes up, for what that show that we do, me and Connor do, as a bonus already cancelled, is going to be. But you can look forward to that. So, but don't worry, you're still getting a bonus episode of the Ace every month if you're at the $1 tier. Every month you'll get your bonus episode, exclusive bonus episode, and who knows what's coming next. But I know by the time this goes up, Leviathan will be the most recent episode that we've put up bonus wise. So hopefully that was fun. Yeah. So
what's coming up next time for the Ace?
That is an excellent question. I don't even have to check because I know what this is. Next time we return to the Terminator franchise for Terminator Salvation, and I know Tara has amusingly, Tara wanted to bring up a deleted scene from Terminator 3 and then forgot to.
I can't believe we forgot. We talked for like 2 hours.
But the funny thing is that effectively it's become a deleted scene from our episode, which you will get in the Terminator Salvation review. It's all worked out, baby. It's all worked out.
It's all, we got it covered.
Yeah, so we'll see how
You'll get your Sergeant Candy review.
Yes, the Sergeant Candy review. So we'll see if Terminator Salvation is better than I remember, worse than I remember, exactly how I remember.
I didn't remember hating it when I watched it in the theater, but I've only seen it once. So we'll see.
Yes. It has to be better than Terminator 3. After watching Terminator 3 again, it has to be better.
That is a garbage movie.
Then again, Genesis is worse than Terminator 3, so I mean it is possible. I've seen the possible.
I don't know. I'll never forgive them for making Arnold not cool.
If you if you want to make a bad movie bad enough, you can do it. If you set your heart out to it, you can make your terrible ass movie. Oh dear. So that has been episode 24.
Really?
Yeah, episode 24.
All
yeah,
right.
yeah. Salvation's 25. Yeah, I think this is 24. And if I'm wrong and the thumbnail says 23 or 25, then just make fun of me in the comments. It's fine. But that's us. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at the Ace Podcast, and make sure you look out for other content that we do. Me and Tara do Twilight Zone reviews every week of the classic Twilight Zone show. Might be of interest. And you can check out that. You can check out the horror movie podcast that I do with Tim, which is Screams After Midnight. You can check that out too. In fact, just recently, for example, we'd have done our It Chapter 2 review. We'd have done our Satanic Panic review. And obviously, we're actually, I mean, by the time this goes up, we should be on the very eve of the Octoberthon 2019, where this year, me and Tim are putting out an episode every single day in October.
That's too many episodes.
31 days, 31 episodes. Now, 4 of them are Patreon exclusives for that $1 tier. The patrons get 4. But every day has an episode.
Whoa. That must have taken a lot of prep.
A decent amount. We're not finished yet, but yeah, it's a decent amount of prep. In fact, tomorrow I am recording 3 Octoberthon movies with Tim.
Christ. Plus It Chapter 2?
Oh, no, just 2. Just 2, because the third one's it. Yeah, we're doing 3 movies, but it's obviously 1, so that's not Octoberthon, but the other 2 are. So, yeah. Busy times ahead. So, look forward to that.
God, we're going to do that for the Ace one month?
We don't have to do it every day.
Better start now.
My thinking, if we were doing it for the Ace, it'd be like 3 episodes a week, so it'd be like 12 for the month as opposed to 31.
Okay.
On the upside, though, we picked April, so there's one less day to worry about, just for the record.
Hey, all right.
Should have picked February. February would have been the easy one.
Dang it.
February sci-fi month. No, but that's us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching sci-fi, guys. And computers are the future, man. You can play games on them. You can do your records. You can do everything. And then you can ask it to add salsa.
Yum, yum.